All right. Good morning, everyone. If you could rewind the clock 1 year when we were still meeting only virtually, the sound of God's people enjoying each other's company is music to my ears. So that's really good. It's good to see everybody here who's with us in person. Also, still very thankful to have the online presence and the ability of those of you who are at home to be able to join us as well. We're going to get started today with a song because this is the day the Lord has made. We're going to rejoice and be glad in it. So stand up with us and let's sing. This is the season for a new anointing. This is the season for a fresh outpouring. That the sons and daughters of the King of glory may arise and shine. That the sons and daughters of the King of glory may arise and shine as we declare, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day. This is the day that the Lord has made. In the beginning God created, and for his pleasure all creation sings. Every son and daughter of the King of glory now arise and shine. Every son and daughter of the King of glory now arise and shine as we declare, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. Let your glory fill the earth. Let your glory fill the earth. Let your glory fill the earth. Let your glory fill the earth as we declare, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord is. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. King of glory, fill the earth. King of glory, fill the earth. King of glory, fill the earth. King of glory, fill the earth as we declare, this is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice, I will rejoice, I will rejoice and be glad in it. This is the day, this is the day, this is the day that the Lord has made. Amen. Welcome, everybody.
Amen. This is the day that the Lord has made. I'm so glad to see so many of you this morning. Welcome to Hunter Hills. Welcome to Hunter Hills to those of you watching online. I'm so glad that you've joined us today for family worship. We're excited to have another one of these special Sundays. Before we get started, I have a couple of announcements to share with you. First, tonight, if you are a rising 6th grader through 12th grader, I guess post 12th grader too, if you're a rising college freshman, if you're in the youth group, you're invited to a pool party tonight at the Scott's house at 5:30. And tomorrow night, I have to make the sad call. We're going to have another Mondays at the movies outdoors, but the forecast does not look like it's going to let us have another movie night outside. So even if the rain let up tomorrow for the actual movie night, I think if it rains all day, it's just not going to be a good time for anybody. So we have to cancel that, which was scheduled for tomorrow night. But mark your calendars for June 28th. We'll have another movie night, hopefully, weather permitting then. Like I said, today's family worship, and we're so glad that you're here. We try to have these about every once a quarter, and we usually do them on special Sunday. So today is Promotion Sunday. So we're welcoming a group of 3-year-olds onto the big kid side, as I've dubbed it. And they're graduating out of Tiny Town, out of nursery, and they'll be joining us in the service at the beginning of every service from now until they're grown. They'll be going to children's worship now. We're also celebrating today a group of kindergartners that are graduating out of children's worship, and we'll be joining you all in the service for the whole time. And we're celebrating a group of 6th graders moving into the youth group. There's just a lot to be celebrated today. So we're excited to mark that with a family worship. These are Sundays where everyone's invited into the worship service for the whole time, and everyone's invited every Sunday. But today we do it with the intentionality of being led in the service, led by families of different kinds, families of faith, families of friends, families of small groups, biological families, and we will be led by them in the worship service today. We will also have a few things for kids throughout the service. So today we're going to have a children's contribution. This is our second one, and we're so excited to get to offer this way for our kids to be involved in the work that God is doing through the church here at Hunter Hills. So today we have baskets on the corners of the stage, and after the sermon, children will be invited to come to the front and give any money that they feel so led to give to Hope House Montgomery. And we're so excited. A fun Hope House update is that there, as of yesterday, I believe, there's a contract on a home in Montgomery pending an inspection, and that everything goes through. Hope House will have a house, which is kind of important. Hope House. So we're excited. We ask for your prayers in that, and that everything will continue to go smoothly. It's a very neat story about how the house came together. If you see Candace today after church, catch her and ask her about it. It's incredible how God works. Even in a big city like Montgomery, God is working through God's people, and we're so thankful. So before I finish the welcome, we have a video that will explain what the children will be giving to. So kids and adults, but kids, pay attention, and you'll find out more about Hope House Montgomery.
Hi everyone, my name is Candace and I'm a member at Hunter Hills. The ministry I run is Hope House Montgomery, where we care for children and teens in our community by offering them a loving place to play. I hope Hope House will grow to be known for being welcoming, loving, and a safe neighborhood home for kids and the community to come to learn and to grow. There are so many ways that you can help Hope House Montgomery. Right now we are collecting books for the kids who come to Hope House to read. If you have books at home that you are no longer using and think that some other kid might want to read, you can donate them to Hope House. You can also donate your money. We love to be able to provide snacks, toys, and games for kids in the neighborhood, and your donations will help us to do that. And of course, you can pray for Hope House. Pray that Hope House is used by God to love and serve its community.
So that's what you'll all be giving to today, and that's a great reminder too about the book drive that's still going on. If you have unused books at your home, not that weren't previously used, but currently not being used, that you would like to give to Hope House, that would certainly be a great place to give them to. There's a bin out in the lobby that you can drop those off. And with that, like I said, today's family worship, and I just want to say to all the moms and dads in the room who are a little panicky or a little nervous, poor planning on my part to have the first time the 3-year-olds are not in Tiny Town via family worship. So we've got lots of newbies today. We're so excited that they're here. We welcome everything that they bring with them. We welcome them completely and totally. The noise, the movement, the in and out, if they must go to the potty 6 times or whatever it is, we welcome you all completely. So moms and dads, take a deep breath. There is no judgment in here. And with that, today we're honoring our graduating kindergartners. They'll be leaving children's worship, like I said, and joining you all in here for this service each and every week. And so I would like to invite them up. We're going to give them a gift and celebrate them. So that is, if y'all want to come on forward, and I said parents are welcome to come if kids are a little anxious, but that's Mason Adams, Kenna Cantrell, Hudson Carpenter, Hudson Carr, Phoenix Caver, Maggie Crowder, Blake Manley, Christina Manley, and Marley Starr. Come on up, guys. Come on. Come right here with me. Is that everybody? Oh, is that everyone? So this is a very special group of kindergarteners. For me, they will always be the 3-year-olds. They were 3 when I got here, and I can't seem to shake the term. I still refer to them as the 3-year-olds. But this is a special group. They've been together for such a long time, and I'm so sad that they won't be joining me in children's worship every week, but we're excited for them to get to be in here with all of you. So we wanted to present these Bibles to them as they continue to grow and learn to read. These are heavy-duty Bibles. Do you guys think you can carry them? Yes. Okay, good. Okay, good. So this one belongs to Mason Adams. We're so excited. And this one is Kenna Cantrell's. Kenna, there you go, girl. And we've got Hudson Carpenter's. There you go, bud. These are Bibles that hopefully will serve them well. Here's Phoenix's. You see your name in the front? Serve them well as they grow. We've got Maggie's. A real Bible. And Blake. There you go, buddy. And here's Christina's. Uh-oh. That's all right, you know. Okay, so let's give them one more round of applause. We're so excited. So proud of this group. And together, this group, in a way, we're all family too. So we're going to participate in family worship together. We're going to read we're going to say the call to worship together. If you all would stand with us as we invite you into worship today. You guys ready? Okay. Oh, and the your all's part will be in yellow and italics. Okay. Oh God, as we worship together today as a family of faith, we pray that we would be a reflection of your Son, who, when asked who his family was, looked to those who sat around him. We pray that each of us would be formed by one another. For the children, may we be drawn to the reverence, gratitude, and wisdom in the adults and students. Lord, hear our prayer. For the adults and students, may we be drawn to the awe and wonder in the hearts of children, the acceptance, optimism, and honesty that they share. That the extra noise, the loud whispers, cries, and sounds of crayons to paper would be as pleasing to our ears as they are to yours, and that our time today would serve as a reminder of the life that you have created and filled your church with. Lord, hear our prayer. May we respond to your call to tell of your love for generations to come, to welcome the children and to become like them. In the name of Jesus Christ our Lord, amen. Thank you, guys. Let's worship together.
So one of the things that I was thinking as we were preparing for this worship and knowing that the kindergartners were going to be brought up here is we had a discussion not long ago in one of the classes here about our children and about how they likely see things that we don't see. And so these next 2 songs are about seeing God. And I think they get this already, so it's really more for us, okay? Let's sing these. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord. Open the eyes of my heart. I want to see you. I want to see you. To see you high and lifted up, shining in the light of your glory. Lord, pour out your power and love as we sing, holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. You are holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. Holy, holy, holy. I want to see you. Who has held the oceans in his hands? Who has numbered every grain of sand? Kings and nations tremble at his voice. All creation rises to rejoice. Who has given counsel to the Lord? Who can question any of his words? Who can teach the one who knows all things? Who can fathom all his wondrous deeds? Behold our God, seated on his throne. Come, let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare. Come, let us adore him. Who has felt the nails upon his hand, bearing all the guilt of sinful man? God eternal, humble to the grave, Jesus Savior, risen now to reign. Behold our God, seated on his throne. Come, let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare. Come, let us adore him. You will reign forever. You will reign forever. You will reign forever. You will reign forever. Behold our God, seated on his throne. Come, let us adore him. Behold our King, nothing can compare. Come, let us adore
right, so Family Sunday. I asked them if they wanted to say anything, and they didn't want to talk in the microphone, so I'm just going to do it myself. I was also asked to remind everybody, you get 2 cups here. Well, the bottom one has the bread in it, so don't just grab the top one and think you have it. So what I want to talk about briefly was thinking about the cross and thinking about what Jesus did. Maybe give a perspective that's maybe different than what we heard growing up, or at least different than what I heard growing up, but I think might be an accurate portrayal. I heard growing up, or at least the way I perceived it, is that God was really, really angry that we had sinned. And because of that, we all had to go to hell forever. And that Jesus kind of got in the way, and then God just killed Jesus instead to satisfy his lust for blood. And that's, I think, a pretty ugly picture of God. Maybe I put it a little harsher than it was put, but that's basically the way that I perceived it growing up. And so I wanted to give just kind of another picture of what that might look like briefly, and that is that I think that God created people to be his imagers here on earth, to help him take care of creation, and his goal was that we live forever with him and be his caretakers of the earth, be his caretakers of the animals. Yes, people are animals, but we were special. We were the imagers of God. We were made in his image. But we were deceived, and instead of taking of the tree of life, they took of the forbidden fruit, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and because of that, we had to die. And ever since then, death has been the big problem, and death has been the big enemy of people. People throughout all ages they've always worried about death. Like, we have an obsession, a fear of death, because deep down, God designed us to be immortal. I think that's why we have this fear of death. And then Jesus came, and the king of death is Satan, and we know that his kingdom is what's currently ruling over the earth right now. And we know that because when he took Jesus up, when he took him, in Matthew chapter 4, I believe it was, when Jesus had been fasting, he took him and he showed him all of the kingdoms, and he said, "These are mine." He said, "I can give you authority over these." But it showed us that the kingdoms that he was showing, the kingdoms of the earth, they belong to Satan. They belong to the kingdom of darkness. And what Jesus did, Jesus went around and he performed miracles and he performed exorcisms. And every time he did that, it was like a blow to the kingdom of darkness. He would bring a little bit of kingdom of heaven into the kingdom of darkness to displace the kingdom of darkness. But of course, the kingdom of darkness eventually thought they won when they had Jesus killed. But Jesus did something that no other human had ever done in the history of humanity, and that's that he, by his own power, was able to break the power of death. Out of his own power, he broke the power of death, and that was the mortal wound in the kingdom of darkness. That somebody came back, and he came back, and he was a human. He walked around on earth, but he could live on earth, but then he also went to heaven, and he could live on heaven. And so, like, the 4 points that I want to give here, very briefly. One, I think a better way to look at what Jesus did on the cross is not something to satisfy the wrath of an angry God, but instead, as Jesus defeating the kingdom of darkness, defeating the powers of sin and the power of death by actually going into hell himself and breaking the formerly unbreakable chasm between death and life. And at that moment, yes, we still have death on this world. Yes, this earth is not perfect and there's still sin, but that was the turning point in the battle, and that was the point in which the victory of the kingdom of heaven over the kingdom of the darkness became inevitable. To that, point number 2, as people here on earth today, just as when Jesus performed miracles and performed exorcisms, and the apostles did the same, they were bringing bits and pieces of the kingdom of heaven to earth even though we're in the kingdom of darkness still, we as Christians today, that is our goal. That is the Christian vocation, is to bring heaven to earth today. Bring bits and pieces of heaven. Everything that we do, every Christ-like good work and good deed that we do is to bring bits and pieces to heaven to earth until the final piece of heaven comes to earth. And that's what you see in the book of Revelation, when the city of Jerusalem, the New Jerusalem, descends to earth, and heaven and earth can be one again as they were supposed to be and they were in the garden. To point number 3, just as Jesus died and was resurrected, where he had a body, he could live on earth, but he could also live in heaven at the same time. That's the Christian goal. The Christian goal is not to die and have your spirit float away to be in the clouds somewhere. In that case, death wins because you never come back. The Christian goal is to have a resurrected body where we can live on earth and heaven at the same time, heaven and earth together, just as they were in the Garden of Eden. That is the ultimate Christian hope. And then finally, the tree of life. When we think of the cross, when we think of what we're partaking of here, the actual body and blood of Christ, we've heard the cross, oftentimes it's referred to in songs as the tree. I think the cross is a good parallel of the tree of life. So just as when Adam and Eve took of the forbidden fruit and they were condemned to death, so we take of the fruit of the cross, the fruit of the tree of life, the cross of life, and we're given eternal life. Let's pray. Dear God, we thank you for Jesus. We thank you for what he did. We thank you for his victory over sin and death. We thank you for his power being able to defeat the kingdom of darkness that is still around today, but whose fate is sealed. We thank you for your victory at the cross. As we take of the body and blood of your son Jesus, please help us to remember this. Please help us to remember this victorious tone that we can have as followers of Jesus, that the battle's over. Help us to remember the work that we have to do here in helping to bring the kingdom of heaven here. Thank you for this fruit of the cross that we're about to take. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Let the weak say I am strong. Let the poor say I am rich. Let the blind say I can see. It's what the Lord has done in me. Let the weak say I am strong. Let the poor say I am rich. Let the blind say I can see. It's what the Lord has done in me. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. Into the river I will wade. There my sins are washed away. From the heavens mercy stream of the Savior's love for me. And I will rise from waters deep into the saving arms of God. I will sing salvation songs. Jesus Christ has set me free. Hosanna, Hosanna to the Lamb that was slain. Hosanna, Hosanna, Jesus died and rose again. what the Lord has done in me.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Now, if you were here a couple of weeks ago, I know what some of y'all are thinking. You're thinking, oh no, here we go again. It's the crier. He's cried already twice while preaching, but don't worry. I think we're going to make it through today, but I don't make any promises whatsoever. I only give you my own singular vote, if I could say vote, of confidence. So take that vote of confidence with what you will. This morning, we're continuing our series on parables, the stories that Jesus told to tell us about the kingdom of God. And he told us about the kingdom of God through these parables in a couple of ways. In some of these parables, he simply gave us descriptions of what the kingdom of God is like. One good example is the parable of the mustard seed. He said the kingdom of God is like a mustard seed, which starts out, it's the smallest seed of all, but then it grows into this big bush, so big that a bird can even come and perch on it. That's a description of what the kingdom of God is like. Other parables Jesus gives us, they still have to do with the kingdom of God, but what's different is that in these parables, Jesus tells us how do we live in the kingdom of God? How do we as people live as kingdom people, as God's people? And that kind of parable is what we're going to be talking about this morning. We're talking about one of the most popular parables ever, at least in the top two. It comes out of Luke 10, and we're going to be talking about the parable of the Good Samaritan. Now, as we go through the parable of the Good Samaritan, we're just going to go straight through it. And this morning's sermon is probably going to be a little bit different than what I usually do. I like to give just straight up points. But instead of points, we're going to stop at a few places, and I just want to give you guys a few questions to reflect on for yourselves. You can continue to reflect on them through the rest of the week or for however long you want to. But as we go through, we're going to pause and see a couple of places and ask ourselves a few questions. We're going to look in Luke chapter 10, starting in verse 25, and we're going to look at the context of this parable first. On one occasion, an expert in the law stood up to test Jesus. "Teacher," he asked, "what must I do to inherit eternal life?" "What is written in the law?" he replied. "How do you read it?" He answered, "Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul, with all your strength and with all your mind, and love your neighbor as yourself." "You have answered correctly," Jesus replied. "Do this and you will live." But the man wanted to justify himself, and so he asked Jesus, "And who is my neighbor?" So already starting off, what we see is one of those tricky guys who's trying to trick Jesus into saying something that the rest of the religious people won't like. And so he asks Jesus, "How do I get eternal life?" Jesus flips it back on him. He says, "Well, I've got to love God, love other people." And so this guy wants to justify himself. Either he wants to make himself feel good about how well he's loving people, or at least he wants all of the other religious leaders to take note that he's doing what he's supposed to. He's loving God the way he's supposed to. He's loving people the way he's supposed to. And so he asks Jesus this question, "Jesus, who is my neighbor?" Now, this seems like kind of a cold, callous question that for those of us who've been raised in church, we've heard the Good Samaritan before. We know that everybody's supposed to be our neighbor. Everybody's supposed to love us. But this guy asked this question, who is my neighbor? Now, maybe part of the reason he asked this is because of what we hear Jesus say in Matthew chapter 5. Remember, Matthew chapter 5, Jesus is preaching the Sermon on the Mount, and he's kind of countering some popular teachings of the day, or at least so it seems. And one of the things Jesus says is, "You have heard it is said, love your neighbor, hate your enemy, but I say to you, love your enemy." Apparently, there may have been a teaching going around that at least some people were more deserving of your love than others. Maybe this teacher in the law thought that some people were more worth my love. They are more worth good deeds than other people. For this expert in the law, maybe he thought it was other religious leaders like me. Certainly, they deserve more love than all of those other nasty sinners, they're doing all the bad things. I'm going to give my love and good deeds to the people who are actually doing the good stuff. Maybe he thought that the Israelites were more worthy of love than the outsiders, the foreigners, the Gentiles. We're God's people. They're the people who need love the most. Those who are outsiders, well, they weren't chosen by God. Why would I choose them too? For whatever reason, he feels pretty comfortable with thinking that some people are more worth his love than others. And even though we may not say it quite as straightforward as this teacher in the law, maybe sometimes we fall in that trap of thinking that some people deserve my love more than others. Maybe sometimes we think that somebody doesn't deserve good deeds. Maybe somebody doesn't deserve my forgiveness because of how much they hurt me. Maybe somebody has just committed some kind of sin that's extremely bad, one of the ones you're definitely not supposed to do. Gossip, you pass the test, you're okay. But if you do some other stuff, I can't talk to you. So if somebody's a bad enough sinner, maybe we feel like we probably shouldn't do many nice things for them. Maybe we think that somebody's in a bad situation, but it's their fault. They got themselves into that situation, and so I don't need to help them. That responsibility is taken off of my shoulders because they have put themselves in that situation, and so it simply is not my duty to love them. There may be all kinds of reasons that we decide that somebody is not as worthy of our love as others. Maybe sometimes we fall into the trap that this teacher of the law is in. And so the first question that I want us to reflect on this morning, it's really a double question. The double question is, who do I find it hard to love? Who are the people in my life that are difficult to love? Maybe it's somebody in your family. Maybe it's people of a different culture. Maybe it's somebody who leans another place politically than you do. Either way, maybe there's somebody or a group of people that you find it more difficult to love. The second part of this double question that I think any Christian should think about is, who is it that the church has a difficult time loving? Are there groups of people who fall under certain labels that the church finds it especially more difficult to love, that we've actually done a really bad job at loving? Maybe for some of us, it would be groups that we would put in the category of sinner. Maybe because they're sinners, we push them to the outside and we don't make them feel welcome. Maybe one thing to think about is, what are the types of people that don't usually show up in our church buildings, or who are the types of people that are probably the most uncomfortable if we had a conversation with them about religion or Christianity? Those are probably the biggest candidates for us to realize, who is it that the church is not loving well? And so the first two questions for us to think about and to reflect on is, who do I have a hard time loving? Who is the church not loving so well right now? So he asked, who is my neighbor? Who am I required to love? Who is worthy, or who is it my duty to love? And so Jesus responds with this story. We're going to read the whole story first, and then we'll go back through it. In reply, Jesus said, a man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho when he was attacked by robbers. They stripped him of his clothes, beat him, and went away, leaving him half dead. A priest happened to be going down the same road, and when he saw the man, he passed by on the other side. So too, a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii, gave them to the innkeeper, and said, look after him. And when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense that you may have. Which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of the robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So going back to the top of the parable, it starts off pretty tragic. This man is traveling down the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, and it's been said that this was an extremely dangerous road. So to the audience, it's not much of a surprise that on the way, the man was beaten, he was robbed, and he was left for dead. So this man is in a tragic situation, obviously in need of help. And so Jesus tells about two people who come walking by. But what they do is they see the man and they pass by on the other side, a priest and a Levite. Now, both of these men, to some degree, may have been religious leaders. Certainly, the priest would have been. He would have been performing many of the religious rituals and helping the people of Israel, doing temple worship, doing services for them, maybe performing sacrifice to atone for their sins. So this guy was definitely a religious dude. The Levite was probably somebody who assisted in many of these rituals. So these guys were supposed to be pretty important religious dudes. For people who are supposed to be following God, it's the people who are working in the temple every day. You would have pretty high expectations for them. But they see the man and they pass by on the other side. Now, this is another place that I do want to stop, and I want to pause for a second, because most of the time when I grew up hearing this story, I really realized these are the bad guys. These guys are awful, and I didn't like them, because the way that I thought about them was that they were just these cold, indifferent, terrible, hateful men who just didn't like this half-dead man. They were just cold and indifferent. But I think it's a mistake if we think about them just as simply being cold and indifferent. Because I think Jesus is probably likely trying to get some of his audience to really identify with these people. And I think if we just think of the priest and the Levite as just being these cold and different men, then we're more likely to separate themselves from us, to separate themselves from the most of humanity. And we would think, I would never be like the priest and the Levite. But more likely, the priest and the Levite probably had some motivations that may be pretty similar to our own when we refrain from loving other people. Maybe the priest and the Levite had some other things going on, and they had their own personal, very human motivations. Now, obviously, what they did was extremely terrible, but I'm not sure if there was a specific motivation that they had. This is a fictional story. Jesus doesn't tell us exactly what their motivations were. But one motivation for a priest and a Levite may have been to remain clean. See, if this man was dead and they touched him, that would make them unclean. And they couldn't perform the temple rituals that they were supposed to if they were unclean. So maybe they were worried about touching a dead man, being unclean, and so they thought it was just best if they kept on going. Maybe they were worried about the threat of danger. Maybe the man that hurt this guy laying down like this is still out there. If we go and help him, we leave ourselves defenseless, and he's going to hurt us too. These priests, the priest and the Levite, it's probably best to think that Jesus wants them to have some kind of human motivation for not loving other people. And unfortunately, I think sometimes we can be the priest and the Levite. Even if the circumstances that we find somebody in help are less drastic, there may be some reason why we get on the other side of the road and just simply pass by. What are some of the motivations that we can have for not loving other people? Maybe sometimes it is our own fear. Maybe sometimes we're scared of what somebody will do to us if we help them. If they're a stranger, we have no idea what this person's going to do. Maybe sometimes we put it under the category of wisdom. If I give money to this homeless man, maybe he's going to use it to do drugs or to do crack or something like that. He's going to not use it well. But we don't know that person. We don't know if they've ever done anything wrong like that. We don't know if they've ever done drugs or alcohol or how they got into the situation that they're in. Nonetheless, even if that's your objection, there's probably some other way that you can love that person, right? But sometimes we give ourselves reasons to not love. To the priest and the Levite, whatever reason they had, it made perfect sense to them. And in the same way, sometimes we refrain from loving other people for reasons that make perfect, complete sense to us. But in the kingdom of God, when we're called to love, there's probably not too many excuses that are legitimate enough to keep us from loving another human being. And so our second question this morning that we need to reflect on is, what motivations keep me from loving other people? When I don't love somebody, what are some of the main motivations that keep me from loving other people? But let's keep on reading the story, because many of us know that there's another person who walks by. In verse 33, but a Samaritan, as he traveled, came to where the man was, and when he saw him, he took pity on him. He went to him and bandaged his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he put the man on his own donkey, brought him to an inn, and took care of him. The next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper. Look after him, he said, and when I return, I will reimburse you for any extra expense you may have. And so that's the close of the story. And what I want to notice about this part of the story is just simply how well the Samaritan loves this man who's been beaten. A lot of times we focus on the fact that the Samaritan was a Samaritan, and that means that Jews hated the Samaritans. But this morning, I don't want to focus so much on the fact the guy who did the right thing was a Samaritan, but more of what he actually did. I want to think about the fact that he did everything he could to help this man. He bandages his wounds. He pours on oil and wine. He takes him to an inn. He could have just left the man at the inn, but he pays for his stay there. He tells the innkeeper, okay, I've got to leave. I've got to go do something else, but I'm going to come back and check on this guy. And if you have any expenses that are from taking care of him, I will cover them. The Samaritan man did absolutely everything he could to help this man. The lengths that he goes to, the extent that he goes to love this man is pretty incredible. And sometimes it's different from the way I think, and maybe some of us think, because sometimes I like what's called the bare minimum. I like having a certain bar that if I do this much, then I feel pretty good about it. Like I have reached not necessarily the peak, but I've hit the base of goodness. And so if I do the bare minimum, that's how much I need to do in order to be good. But we don't see the Samaritan doing this. We see him doing everything he can to love this man. This Samaritan is an ideal picture of what it means to be a person in the kingdom of God. Somebody who's willing to do anything they can to help another person when they're in need. Somebody who's going to go to the farthest extent to love another person simply because that person is also made in the image of God. This Samaritan brings us the perfect picture of what we are to be in the kingdom of God. So after Jesus tells this story, he says, which of these 3 do you think was a neighbor to the man who fell into the hands of robbers? The expert in the law replied, the one who had mercy on him. Jesus told him, go and do likewise. So finally, Jesus tells the story, and then he kind of sums up what the story really is about. And I love what Jesus does here, because in classic Jesus fashion, he never really answers the man's question straightforward, right? The man asks, who is my neighbor? And if it was me, I like just giving straightforward answers, telling people what I think, and I probably would have just said, well, you're supposed to love everybody. Everybody's your neighbor. You're supposed to love every single person. But Jesus doesn't answer this parable that straightforward. Instead, he tells this story, and then he asks this question, which I think really gets to the heart of the parable. What he asks is, who was a neighbor to this man? Jesus completely flips the question around. The question starts off, who is my neighbor? And Jesus says, it's not about who your neighbor is. It's not about who it's your duty to love other people. The question is not who is your neighbor. The better question is, are you a neighbor? That's Jesus' question. Are you a neighbor? It's not just simply love everybody out there. It's, is everybody else your neighbor? It's on you to be a neighbor to the people around you. And so the last question that we want to reflect on this morning is, are you a neighbor? Am I a neighbor? What are ways that I can be better about being a neighbor to other people? What ways am I doing well at being a neighbor? The question that Jesus poses is, are you a neighbor? And then he sends the man with the commission to go and do likewise. Be the Samaritan man who's willing to go to any extent to love other people, because that's what it means to be a part of the kingdom of God. There's this quote that I think gets to the heart of what Jesus is saying in his question of who was the neighbor, or are you a neighbor? There's this quote by a pastor named Tim Keller that I really like. What Tim Keller says, it's really easy to love everyone because everyone is just out there. Everyone is just a picture, and they're just an ideal that exists out there. What's a whole lot harder is loving the person right in front of you, because that takes action. What Jesus calls us to do is to be a neighbor to the person who's right in front of us. Each interaction that we have with another person is an opportunity to be a neighbor, to love other people the way that God created us to be. And when we love other people and when we're neighbors to each person that we come across, we live out God's mission and God's purpose for us, and we are living out the kingdom of God. I really like what Alan said in his thoughts, that what we are to do is bring heaven here on earth. Every single person that we come across has been stained by sin. We've all been affected by sin, hurt by sin. And what it means to be a part of the kingdom of God and what it means to bring heaven here on earth is to be a neighbor in a way that helps mend some of that brokenness. Or it's to be a neighbor in a way that maintains the goodness of what's been given to us. When we're a neighbor in a way that mends the brokenness of people or maintains the goodness, the good relationships that we have with others, or maintains the relationships that they have with God, when we're a neighbor that way, we are being everything we can in the kingdom of God. So the last question, well, the same question that I've already asked, I'm going to close with that same question, and then I'll pray, and then we'll introduce the children's contribution, is, are you a neighbor? Let's pray. Dear Lord, thank you so much for a wonderful morning together here at Hunter Hills, an opportunity to worship together as a family. I thank you for the families who have participated, who have led us in this worship this morning, and for the children who have led us. God, we thank you for the wonderful gifts that you give us in these children. The reminder that you give us that you do fill this church with life and with love, and I pray for each of us that we are neighbors to each other, every single person in this church, and that we are neighbors to people outside of our communities and our homes, so that when people are with us, they feel welcome, they feel loved, they feel secure because of the support that we provide them in a way that a neighbor does. God, we thank you for giving us a friend in Jesus Christ who shows us how to be a friend to others. Remind us of his love so that we can go out and love others. And it's in your name that we pray. Amen.
All right, so I'm going to ask everybody to stand up, and kids, so you've been introduced this morning to Hope House Montgomery, Miss Candace's ministry, and we have neighbors in Montgomery, and Mr. Stephen just asked us and challenged us to consider, are we a good neighbor? So Jordan has challenged you to contribute to the books and the mission of Hope House Montgomery. So you're going to see there's a basket right here, and there's a basket right over there. So if you brought a contribution today for the Hope House, we're going to sing a song, and you feel free to come up and give that while we sing. I've heard 1,000 stories of what they think you're like, but I've heard the tender whisper of love in the dead of night. You tell me that you're pleased and that I'm never alone. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. I've seen many searching for answers far and wide, but I know we're all searching for answers only you provide. You know just what we need before we say a word. You're a good, good father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways. You are perfect in all of your ways to us. Love so undeniable, I can hardly speak. Peace so unexplainable, I can hardly think as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still as you call me. Deeper still into love. Love, love, you're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am. You're a good, good Father. It's who you are. It's who you are. It's who you are, and I'm loved by you. It's who I am. It's who I am. It's who I am.
As we assemble from different parts of the room, it's been a really great day. It's encouraging on a lot of fronts. So went to the men's class this morning with Carl, and I don't think you could have fit another individual in that room. I think we'll probably have to move to the auditorium next week if we have anybody else, and I heard the women's class was the same. Really good thoughts there. Praise team did a fine job as always. Alan, you didn't disappoint with some deep thoughts that weren't coming to my mind just out of the gate, but those are really good. And Stephen, with that last question, are we being a neighbor? I think, when you put that in the context of are we being a neighbor just to the world at large, that's kind of nebulous and easy, like you said. But the challenge for me is, am I being a neighbor to the person that's right in front of me? And I'll just be honest with you, a lot of times I don't want to be inconvenienced by what I already had planned going on. And I think a challenge that he's given us, and I'll just reiterate, I think we've got to allow ourselves to be led by the Spirit and allow that inconvenience to come on and just embrace it and accept it. So going to get some help with the benediction, all willing participants.
You are sent, you are spent. You are sent with the Spirit of God.
You are sent with the peace of a risen Christ. You are sent to be a living sacrifice.
You are sent. Nope. Yeah, there's a microphone. You are sent with a small picture of what the kingdom of God looks like in the here and now. You are sent to make it on earth as it is in heaven.
You are sent to bless one another in your coming and in your going. You are sent with a prayer that you will return joyfully once again through our doors. You are sent.